you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Profiling Evil Conversations with Mike King and Chris McDonough. I'm really pleased to have Chris back here with me today. But today we have a special guest, Lauren Scharf from Fox21 News in Colorado. Thanks for joining us, Lauren.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's really nice. I thought I'd just tell folks a little bit about you because I did a little cyber snooping of my own.
Okay.
Lauren is a digital producer and data reporter for Fox21 News in Colorado, and her experiences date back to several agencies that she worked with. Even though she looks really young, she has had quite a few years of experience, and this is really exciting for us. News organizations going back to Huntsville, Alabama, and Kearney, Nebraska. One of the things I really liked, Lauren, was you played soccer in college. I think you were the soccer team
Captain?
Yeah, there we go. Team
Yeah.
captain. Thank you. And another thing that I was really intrigued by, only because we did a great deal of research on this and social media and 911 calls after the event, was that you covered the Aurora shooting, the Batman shooting as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so thanks for your efforts there. We really were intrigued by this narcissistic way that we have of trying to move in and get video of things today. When we were kids, we were taught to run from the crime scenes when something bad was happening, but people today with their mobile devices seem to run toward it so they can be the one to capture video and have it shared. So it's kind of a weird behavioral characteristic that we're seeing among the general population.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's kind of a crazy thing in today's dynamics, Lauren. And obviously with your experience level, you've seen a big shift, I bet, too, on just people getting a little more crazy, right?
Well, just from when I started, in journalism till now, the world of social media has changed, and getting stories and learning about what's happening in your community, it's so different from when I started till now, as far as people will send you tips via social media instead of having to pick up the phone and call sources and say what's going on and things like that. So it's changed, and it's a continuous, evolving door with how many social media accounts there are and things like that. And can you trust those people that are behind a keyboard and things like that? You have to vet that as well. So it's definitely an interesting, and especially with, COVID and us not being able to really do interviews face to face sometimes because of COVID. We've had to do a lot of Zoom calls and, stuff like this instead of actually being person to person. That's been interesting as well.
That's an interesting comment that you're making, because we're seeing this with social media on digital platforms and geography platforms where we're really having to vet the reliability of a source and whether it's just the originating source of the social media or if it's someone who's retweeting something and they're retweeting from across the country, but it appears like what they're talking about is in your backyard instead of 1,000 miles away. And then this anonymity or perceived anonymity that comes with socialized information. People say things maybe a little more bravely than they really should, because all of that can be traced back.
Yeah, if I have to do that as a journalist, I can't imagine what law enforcement is having to do, behind the scenes when it comes to those tips that, like the Suzanne Morphew case where they're getting 600 tips in and they have to vet every single one, even if it's, could be very reliable, they still have to do that just because there are so many people that are just behind a keyboard and things like that, that it may not be true. They might not have anything to do with the case or anything like that. They still have to, dot their I's and, cross their T's to make sure what that person is saying is really true and doesn't have anything to do with the case that they're working on.
Yeah, that's a good point. Mike and I will tell you through, from experience, gals like you are really dangerous from the law enforcement side. I mean, because you're good, and you know, there was nothing worse than seeing, you know, your number one witness on, you know, the news, and you're sitting at your desk trying to figure out, you know, what the next step is, and there you are out there already ahead of us. So this is awesome. We appreciate your time this morning. And
you can see how frightened he is of you, actually. He married a journalist from the newspaper in San Diego. So yeah, he has a decades of experience of being investigated. So
that's how I know. So
well, let's jump into this.
Yeah. So what do you think? Can you bring us up to speed? We watched your last live, which was fantastic, and it sounds like you know, you're really on the hunt here. What should we know? What do you think? Where are you headed with all this?
So I spoke with CBI yesterday, kind of saying, you know, it's been almost a week since your last update. What can you tell me now? What's been going on? Have there been searches? Can you suspect foul play in this case? I understand that it's still a missing persons case, but can you suspect foul play? The spokesperson referred me to the statement that Chaffee County Sheriff John Speasy said in regards to there having more than a dozen investigators work on this case daily. They're aggressively going after tips. They're aggressively looking into this. And she said, as far as searches go, she said, so far this week, there has not been any searches. So July 9th was the last search. FBI, CBI, Chaffee County Sheriff's Office investigators, they all went back to Suzanne Morphew's home to search. I don't know exactly why they went back there. They haven't told us that. What they did there, I'm not sure either.
Did you get a chance to go back to where they searched, and have you seen what they did in terms of after the fact?
No, and I am going back. I'm going to Salida today. Okay. Hopefully I can, you know, find more answers to people's questions, and I would love to talk with Barry. I have a list of questions for Barry. I understand his family is going through an unimaginable tragedy, and this time, the last couple months have been, I can't imagine what they've been going through. I don't want to be confrontational or anything. I just want to help, you know, them locate and find Suzanne. So I've printed out some questions for him. I'll, you know, leave it on his mailbox, you know, on his door. I'll knock on the door, obviously, if I can, try to talk with him. It's been more than 2 months, and I feel like there's been more questions than answers at this point.
Yeah.
Mike, what do you think?
Lauren, on the map that we just threw up on the screen there for a moment, could you look at that? And it's pretty clear. Originally, when the information first started coming out, we looked at two separate locations over to the right as alternate bridges where that bike was discovered. It was pretty clear after we've learned more, but everything we have is publicly released information that this pink point on the map is the location where the bike was recovered. Do we know anything about the other personal item yet? Is there anything revealed on that?
No, I understand there's been confusion as far as during the one interview press conference that John Speasy did. He said items, and so people thought there was multiple items. I checked back with CBI, and they said it was just one item. As far as what that item is, they haven't said anything, and they haven't even, when I asked questions about the location of the bike, how the bike was found, the bike's condition, things like that, Chaffee County Sheriff's Office will not disclose that information either.
You know, I think we're a little bit foggy still on how we know that she was riding a bike. I mean, we know that her bike was recovered.
Yeah. Good point.
But how do we know? Did someone see her riding the bike that morning?
Not that I know of. And, you know, the very first couple press releases, it just said reportedly she did not return from a bike ride. And that was from the neighbor who called 911. As far as I know, but again, I'm not law enforcement. I haven't talked to or heard that anyone saw her that morning on a bike ride.
You don't know how happy that makes us here that we don't have a lot of information, because that means the police are doing their job the right way, as frustrating as it is. And that's really exciting for us to see law enforcement really holding a lot of information close to the cuff.
Mm-hmm. And when I spoke with the private investigator who works in Pueblo near, it's in Colorado, but and he's had 25 plus years of experience in Colorado working investigations and things like that. He said it's a good thing that law enforcement is keeping things close to the heart, and he believes that they're on the right track, that this case will not go cold, and there will be justice, or there will be some resolution to this case.
Yeah. So just a quick question. Unpack some of the relationship dynamics for us with, with the best friend. I saw your comments about him and Mike from a behavioral analysis, point of view. It'd be interesting to see what are those dynamics. Help us understand, really what's the circle of influence around Suzanne.
I mean, everyone that I've spoken to, it's from the Chaffee County Fire Chief who recruited Barry as a volunteer firefighter, to an uncle, to Barry's best friend. Like literally everyone that I've spoken to says that Suzanne is just beaming. She's the sweetest woman ever. When you're talking to her, it's like you're talking to, like, she only talks to you in the room, or it only acts like you are the only person in the room, and she'll do anything for you. People have told me that they were avid. They went to church a lot. They prayed before every meal, and they moved to Colorado in 2018 as like. From the Chaffee County Fire Chief, he told me it was like kind of their retirement. They sold a company out in Indiana, wanted to come to Colorado, and I mean, it's just everyone has nothing but sweet things to say about Suzanne. And I asked, the best friend Troy Skinner about her bike rides. I said, when you visited them twice, when they moved, after they moved, did you see her go on bike rides? Did you talk to her about her bike rides? And he said, yeah. He said she felt safe. There was no hesitation to go by herself. She loved them. He said that she was very active. She went to the gym a lot. She was eating no sugar. She just had her last treatment for cancer, and so everyone was in good spirits. Again, that was in October. So it was a couple months after, obviously, before May. So, I mean, it sounds like they had been married for 30 plus years. They were not high school sweethearts. I understand that they had met after Barry went to play for the Blue Jays and he got cut. And he started working on a golf course where her family lived, and that's how they met. And then they both went to Purdue University, and they've had 2 kids, and now they're in Colorado. You know what I mean? Fast forward to now. So
idyllic family.
Yeah.
Yeah,
one of the best friends even said they're like your modern day, Little House on the Prairie family. Like they're literally the perfect family, is what the best friend said. And he told me, when him and Barry would go on long trips to go hunting, that every time one of the daughters or Suzanne would call, it would be on Bluetooth, so he could hear the conversation. It was nothing but love. And it was nothing but respect for one another and things like that.
Lauren, do you have anything to clear up some of the confusion around whether Barry was attending training in Denver, or there's so many different little side tributaries that are giving information that may not be accurate.
So when I talked to the Chaffee County Fire Chief, he told me because of COVID, there was a lot of trainings that had been canceled, and for him, he didn't send any of his volunteer firefighters to any type of training, but he said that doesn't mean that he could have gone on his own training. As far as I know, I've looked and I haven't found any training that was going on at the time in Denver. So I believe that if he was in Denver, it was for a work. And that's what Troy Skinner, the best friend, told me. It was for probably a work job that he had in Denver for his high-end lawn care business.
Yeah.
And I believe that lawn care business is called Sunset Farms, I think. Some LC, yeah, something like that.
The site in Salida is garnering a lot of attention, and yet it's kind of gotten quiet about what's going there. But I know you're heading out today. Any thoughts on that?
I have not heard of them going back to that construction site at all. As far as, they spent 3 whole days there, and it was long days, it seemed like, from what I've heard. And when I went out there, what I could see was there was this big tent, and it was like they were, what's the word when you like shake soil, not soil, but sifting. Yes, I couldn't think of the word, sifting through items. So they, in the last press release about that, they didn't say that they had found anything. So, and as far as when I asked this private investigator about testing and forensic testing from that site, he said typically in cases like this that are high profile cases, they would be immediate testing. And so it would take possibly 72 hours to get back the testing. But you guys probably know as well, because you guys were in law enforcement, as far as how much time from getting possible evidence you would get that back and that information back. But at this time, they still say, Suzanne Morphew is still missing. We still have not located her.
Yeah. Whenever they go to that level, typically, whenever you're digging in the ground, that's usually not a good sign, right? Mm-hmm. As a whole, whether it means anything, if it's a process of just eliminating, to say you did it, that could be a possibility. But when they put those types of resources in, an agency, when typically there's a forensic anthropologist or somebody like that, from, either the lab, CBI or something to that effect. And those guys and gals, this is what they do for a living. I mean, literally, and it's an archaeological dig, and it's really fascinating because, you learn a tremendous amount by being around, those types of experts. And then simultaneously, to your point, that type of evidence, if it is discovered, we have a term, Mike and I are very familiar with. It's called bag it and tag it. And so, that's probably what takes place there. So I don't want to get ahead, Mike, if we can just kind of, I had a quick question about the Suzanne's family dynamics, her mom, her dad, brothers, sisters. I haven't heard a whole bunch about that. And Mike, I don't know if we've really heard a whole bunch about that. Can you kind of unpack those dynamics if you know what those are?
Yeah, so Suzanne had a stepmother and a stepfather, a mother and father, and the only living parent is the father, biological father. And from what I was told by the Mormon family, which is Suzanne's side of the family, is that he's not doing well. His health isn't doing well. and they asked me not to reach out to him. And the family, they say, they think about her every day, and this is a huge tragedy to them, and they just don't want to talk to the media at this point. I do know that Suzanne's brother, one of her brothers, she has multiple brothers, did come out to Colorado to help search in the beginning. As far as recently, I have not heard that the Suzanne side of the family has come to help again.
Do you know where they live? Do you know where they live?
A lot of them live in Indiana, where they grew up. Suzanne and Barry both grew up, and then some of them also live in Michigan as well.
Okay. And is that her religion, or is that her maiden name? How's that?
Mormon is her maiden name. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I was gonna say.
Is that a religion? That's interesting.
Yeah, it's just kind of cut through that one quickly.
Yeah.
Interesting. So the brother, it would be interesting to hear what his takeaway is in terms of his sister, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Some of them are telling me, the media, they're telling me that law enforcement has encouraged them or told them not to talk to the media. So it's been difficult on my part to try to get more answers to, even just who Suzanne was, and, what type of mother she was, and sister, and things like that. And also just to keep Suzanne's story in the limelight, as far as keeping this in people's minds, to continue to spread that she's still missing and that she still hasn't been located. So that's all I've got.
Lauren, this is a horrid problem in the United States. I mean, we have some estimates say as high as 800,000 people who go missing each year. Over the last 30 years, the average is about 600,000 per year in the United States who disappear.
Wow.
And roughly 84% of those people will come home. But that equates out to a city of 100,000 just disappearing every year off the map in this bucket called missing persons. Mm-hmm. This is a terrible blight on our country that we really don't talk about much. And what you're doing is really, you're to be congratulated for keeping it in the light and helping people to keep thinking about it, because it's not against the law for her to go missing if she decided to do it on her own. But everything about her makes you think she didn't do this on her own. So thank you for what you're doing. I don't know. I know you've got a big day ahead of you, and maybe we could talk after your visit next week, and you've broken all of the big news stories already. But Chris, I don't know what your thoughts are, but we probably ought to let her go to work.
Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating. We used to say you're in the vein, right? You're on it, and gals like you are just really, really important to Suzanne. She is the victim, to her family, and to the community. I mean, this is, as you know, these things take a huge impact and really hurt the community as a whole. And people come around, but there's an underlying pain within that community when these things happen. So keep it up. I mean, we're grateful. I'm grateful to have a chance to meet you this morning.
Thanks. Yeah, and I mean, a lot of community members have talked to me and said, is this something? I mean, it's an alarming thing that one of your community members goes missing and disappears and vanishes, and it's like. And it was something that a lot of people do, go bike rides. Is it a concern to them to go on bike rides by themselves in that community? Is it a concern for them to go on hikes and things like that a lot of Coloradans do, with just how beautiful it is, and the scenery and the forest and everything like that. And I wanted to make sure from the beginning if it was still okay for these people to continue to go on bike rides and hiking and things like that. And, law enforcement have, told me that, you know, there should not be any alarm to the community, and they think was just an isolated incident. So
Yeah.
You know, Lauren, if you get time, you might look at one video that we did early on. It's on the Valo children on our YouTube channel, but it is specifically dealing with victimology and the victim risk continuum. And it take you about 5 minutes to go through it. But I think if you did, you might look at this case just a little bit differently. It's kind of an interesting way of doing things. But thank you so much. I'm going to have to do a little cyber snooping and see if I can see you playing soccer somewhere, because I always remember my niece was a college soccer player, and all of the boys would get in the backyard and she would just tune them up every time. And so it was so fun to watch. But
I'm sure my coach could probably help you out if you really wanted to.
Well, we can't thank you enough. It looks like we lost our video on Chris.
Looks like my video just went out. Sorry, guys.
But to everyone watching, call the sheriff's office or the FBI if you happen to have any information about Suzanne. And if you got some real mega cool tip, send it to Lauren, and let's see if we can get this gal found and brought home. So thank you so much, Lauren.
Thank you, Mike and Chris.
Thanks, Lauren.
Have a great day. Goodbye.
Bye.
I don't know what happened to the